welcome or welcome back to the Wool Sea Knitting Podcast. My name is Rachel. I am your host and I am a knitter and crafter based out of Ottawa, Canada. This channel is my chatty outlet to talk all things knitting with occasional guest appearances by other crafts. And today is Wednesday, July 26th. Yes, that's true. And I haven't filmed a podcast in a while, so I'm really excited to be here, catch up, and walk you through what I've been working on. So, okay, brief cards on the table. I have no finished objects for you guys today. I think it's been about 5 weeks since I filmed my last podcast, and I have barely been knitting for almost 4 of them because I'll go into this in detail at the end if I still have energy left for a bit of a chatty life update section. But soon after filming my last 2 videos, and there was a bit of a delay between when I filmed my summer knitting inspiration and when I was able to upload it because I was having trouble with the internet where I was at the time. And so soon after filming those, I started feeling a lot of tingling and numbness in my right thumb, which thankfully is not my dominant hand, so a bit less of an impact on my day-to-day life. But tingling and numbness, and all of a sudden I was having trouble with grip, and I felt it especially when I was holding my phone to type and when I was using a computer mouse. And I looked into it, and it seems that is somewhat consistent with carpal tunnel syndrome symptoms. And I haven't gone to a doctor or a physio to be properly diagnosed, but I did immediately start a regimen of everything I could that would help alleviate those symptoms and make sure that I did not aggravate what was happening. So that meant I just kind of stopped knitting. There were several days I did not knit at all, and then other days where I knit with a brace on for a few minutes and tried different ways of modifying things in order to avoid injury or aggravating what was going on. And so I don't have any final objects. I have some knitting to show you and acquisitions for the first time in a while. And I mostly just missed podcasting. It's been a really, really busy summer for me, and that's been great. I've been having a very good summer, but I have missed podcasting. I wanted to catch up. I feel out of the loop with knitting YouTube, and I wanted to say hi. So, hello. It's so nice to be back. Today I'm wearing, this is a finished object from last year, and it is the Drinks on the Patio top by Shanna K. Salmon, and I knit this in Lion brand Pima cotton in the color Stone. So here it is. It is a high neck stockinette fitted tank top. This is, I think, a little bit tighter than it's supposed to be. This is the second one that I've made. The other one I used a bunch of scrappy cotton that I had, and that cotton is thicker, and it's a little bit, you can see here, the stitches, especially around the widest part, around my bust, are gaping a little bit, whereas here, they're not. And so I notice it, not enough for it to bother me. That's not really a problem, but it's because I just cast on with the same needles, stitch counts, etc. from the first one I did without any modifications, and this is a bit of a thinner yarn. That said, I still wear this all the time. I think it's one of my most worn summer tops this summer because I can wear it on Zoom calls where my camera only cuts me off at about here, and I feel a little bit more professional and secure while still having the airflow that's pretty necessary in this very humid, hot, swampy Ottawa summer. And I can wear it to go get drinks on a patio with my friends, and it's comfy, it goes with a lot, and I really like this pattern, and I have very rarely knit 2 of the same thing for myself, so the fact that I've knit this twice for myself is a strong endorsement for this pattern, and I continue to wear both of them a bunch, but especially this one. So if you're in the market for a very, very fast summer worsted weight cotton garment, I recommend it, and it'll be linked. But that's what I'm wearing today because I do not have any finished objects to show you. So, in terms of works in progress, my first one is my cumulus blouse. No, that's not true. My cumulus tee by Petite Knit, and I'm making this in this Color Mart Wild Silk. Color Mart, if you're not already familiar, is a British company that buys and then sells to consumers mill ends from commercial machine knit garments. And so they have, I think, a bunch of regular deals with distributors where I guess they make sweaters multiple seasons, and then Color Mart has somewhat of repeated stock, and then every so often they'll have more one-off unusual things, and this is one of those. I haven't seen it since, but I don't check their website very often. I had a good experience buying from them, but I haven't had a reason to go back. I have more than enough yarn. And this is, yeah, it's 150, or it was when I got it. Now it's not 150 grams anymore, but this was 150 grams of 100% wild silk in the color Perla, which is this rather luminescent gray. And I like it a lot. And wild silk is apparently cruelty-free. It is a different type of moth or silkworm than bomix or mulberry silk moths, and I have found it a very interesting time working with this. So first I will say this is what it looks like. I am very off gauge, so I'm knitting the first size, which is not one that I think would actually correspond with my bust size and the recommended ease. My measurements will be at the bottom of the description box if you're curious, but this is the first size, and I know when I did a swatch, my gauge swatch, I didn't even really leave it to soak. I dunked it in water to make sure it was fully soaked, and then immediately pulled it out, dried it, and laid it flat, and it grew by 4 stitches. Silk has a reputation for growing a lot, and so I'm glad that I swatched. And this is also just a thicker yarn than the Knitting for Olive pure silk that Petite Knit used in her sample, and so I'm a little bit off gauge. My gauge is bigger, and I'm relying on that to see if I can get a full garment out of this, even though I have what seems to be quite a bit less than the recommended amount. And yeah, so this fabric is a little bit like crisper. It's almost crunchy, and then I know from my swatch that it'll end up very drapey and lightweight. Also, the swatch is just a little bit more see-through than I would like. It never really shows up on camera how see-through this is in person, but it's a little bit see-through, and I would prefer something with a little bit more coverage. This is 24.5 stitches in 4 inches. The pattern is supposed to be 28, and I think and hope I'm gonna land somewhere around 26. So that's making this go by a lot faster, is the fact that I'm knitting the smallest size and my gauge is bigger. But right now this looks just so small. I measured it the other day, and right now it is unblocked 28 inches in circumference, which is not my end goal. But yeah, I really think I've had a lot of, much like many other knitting YouTubers, I've had many struggles working with late 100% silk for the first time. I find that this really, really shows any issues with gauge or tension I have. Look at this wonderful line right smack in the middle of my chest where I separated for sleeves. Clearly my tension was off. And that just goes all the way around. And you can see that even though I was using 2 different needle sizes, the rowing out in the flat section is still quite significant. However, looking at it this way, it's much less noticeable than if I hold it sideways and say, look at that, isn't it bumpy? And I was looking at the pattern photos, and quite frankly, you can see a lot of tension blips in Petite Knit's sample, and it still looks wonderful. So I'm hoping that mine does too. And yeah, this has been a bit of a rocky project for me, but I have been powering through. Well, not really. I took like 3 weeks off knitting, maybe more. But I noticed the thumb thing very soon after finishing the flat section, and I really think that knitting this flat in such a unforgiving fiber really made things worse. This is very fatiguing on my hands when I purl. It's not been nearly as bad now that I've been knitting in the round, but this really has just no give to it. Like, there's nothing. There's no bounce. And I found that quite hard. And so I just took a break from knitting it. But this is pretty much my main project in the last 5 weeks since filming. This is what's seen the most of my attention, just because if I don't finish it now, I don't know when I will, because this is hard on my hands. and my hands are mostly feeling better, especially the right one, which I was having issues with to begin with. And I'm at about 7.5 inches from the underarm, and I don't think I'm going to make it much longer before I think I have to start the I-cord if I want to still have yarn left over to do the sleeves. I am struggling to figure out how much yarn I'm going to really need. So my thought is see if I can maybe bring it to 8 inches pre-blocking, because I know that it'll block out a lot width-wise, but I do not know how much it'll block out and expand lengthwise. I'm counting on it doing so a little bit, but if I have a cropped t-shirt, that's okay. And I do want the longer arms, longer sleeves that the sample has. I really like that in a shirt. And of course the I-cord neck. So I think soon I will do the I-cord bind off, and then the neck, and then weigh this, and see how much I have, and then just keep track of how much I've used, split that in half, see how long I get with the sleeves. If I end up getting to the sleeves before, getting to a length of sleeve that I like before hitting the halfway mark of what's left, I might rip out the I-cord bind off for this and make it a little bit longer, but I'll block it first and see. So yeah, this. I am very excited to finish this. I have had mixed feelings about working on it. Sometimes it's been really, really nice. Sometimes it's been a real pain. Stockinette in the round in gray is not the most exciting project, but it has been good for knitting, for like 40 minutes and then putting it down and not having to worry about where I am in a chart. Do I know what I'm doing? Blah, 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 blah. It's very straightforward. And people truly sing the praises of the cumulus tee for summer like a few other patterns before, so I'm really hoping that this becomes a valued part of my wardrobe. Like I said, I find this sort of color very, very wearable. I think gray suits my eyes and my skin, and it works with most of the pants in my wardrobe. So that is finished object number 1. My original goal that I said before my hand started being So in my last podcast video, I said that I was really hoping to have this done by the end of July. That's not going to happen, and I'm very okay with that. In the time since, I had to drastically scale down how much time I spent knitting, and I think in the future, so I can tell ever since finishing the last part of my master's, my baby thesis, I've been sliding back into old habits of marathon knitting sessions, but it's not really just a matter of, okay, well, my hand doesn't hurt right now, so I can do the kind of marathon knitting that I have in the past. No, I think I just need to be better at not being as obsessive about this. But my next work in progress is the pair of chickadee ribbed socks that I went on and on about how much I love the yarn that I'm using in my last episode. I am so warm right now. I'm sorry if I'm rushing. I closed the window and turned off the fan because both were causing a lot of noise, and I'm feeling the heat. But okay, here's the second sock. I don't remember where I was last time, but in the time since I stopped knitting very much, I know that I was about here on the heel. So what I've done since is the last couple rows of the heel flap, I did the turn, and then I basically have just done gusset decreases. This, I have small feet, so this will not actually take me much longer to finish, but I don't want to push myself because I'm already resisting a go, go, go attitude with my cumulus tee now that the end is in sight, and I just want the pressure of whether or not I have enough yarn and that question to be gone. And so I'm already, forcing myself to do a whole bunch of other things instead, and I just don't want to have the pressure of, oh, well, it would be so easy to just bang out the second sock and get it done. No, I want to enjoy it, and I don't want to cause problems. So, yeah, it's been a bit of a mindset shift, and that's part of the reason why I haven't been filming videos is because as soon as I realized what was happening and I realized how much of a problem it is if I am genuinely developing carpal tunnel syndrome just for my life in general, I kind of just dropped everything I was doing for knitting and then have come back to it in the past week and a half. But part of dropping everything means I wasn't watching podcasts, I wasn't checking Instagram or Ravelry, I wasn't doing anything kind of in our knitting ecosystem because I felt like I was missing out, and I found the best way to cope was to just be like, oh, I'm doing other hobbies right now. Oh, I can't knit because I have to finish my mini thesis edits. Oh, I am doing other things right now. Even though this happened, this was entirely precipitated because of not being able to knit. I have in my head reframed it as, wow, I've just been so into my other hobbies recently. Isn't reading in the park the best thing in the whole world? How much fun is going on long walks and seeing if I can identify different plants around me and doing all these different things instead? And so not pushing myself, because I know that I'm close to finishing the body of my cumulus tea and I could just do it if I spent another couple hours knitting, or I know that I could finish that sock in an evening if I wanted to. No, because that's going to cut into my reading time. I know that as the viewer of a podcast that's about knitting, that's not super encouraging to hear in terms of how much content you guys can expect, but I really have to put my body first, and tricking myself is so far the best way of doing that by saying, oh, but why would I finish this sock? When I only have a couple hours before bed and I've just started this whole new book, and things like that. Unfortunately, all of my hobbies are kind of carpal tunnel susceptible. Video games, I hold my hands like this. Cross stitch, I hold my hands like this. Holding a book, I hold my hands like this. But it's okay, we're making it work. And maybe I also just need to go see a physio and make sure it's not what I think that it is. But regardless, I have cast on one thing. This was my congratulations on potentially finishing my master's degree to Me With All My Love cast on. And it is the Rib Lace Raglan by James N. Watts. And I haven't gotten very far because I haven't been knitting, but it's been a lot of fun. I am also off gauge on this. My gauge is too tight, so I'm knitting one size up, and I think I have enough yarn to do it. This is meant for sport weight yarn. I'm using fingering because I've seen people use everything from fingering to DK to achieve different effects for this, just depending on how the opacity, is that a word? How opaque you want this garment to be. For example, I know Anna Passi-Trevino did hers in a DK, and that looks really nice. But I had this in stash, and I like the pattern, and I wanted to use it. So this is Ovis Etc. Igne in the color Pebble, and it's 60% wool, 20% rami, which is a type of paper-ish fiber, and 20% silk, and it's 425 meters and 100 grams. In the skein, in the hank, it had a little bit of color variation. There were some bits of more gray, some bits of more cream, some bits of almost pink. I find that that's almost entirely lost in this. Sorry, I was just out of frame for a bit. I find that's almost entirely lost in the cake form, but that's okay because when I saw the image online and when I ordered it, I didn't realize there was that kind of color variation, so it was a pleasant surprise when I found it, but I still like this yarn without. And this lace pattern I have found to be a lot of fun, but circling back to what I was saying about this being meant for sport weight, but you can use it fingering or a DK and just maybe pay attention and do a gauge swatch. I did a gauge swatch. I know that my gauge is tight with the fingering weight, so I've gone up a size. So far that's been okay, and I've been enjoying this pattern quite a bit. The lace is very simple to understand and very repetitive, and you have to pay attention around the raglan increases. I haven't quite gotten that down with 100% confidence. I still want to check and confirm sometimes, but this lace is really, really fun. And I work on this every so often when I have, the fancy strikes me. And I'm looking forward to having this in my wardrobe, hopefully by the end of summer. I think it'd be a good transitional piece. Part of the reason why I cast this on is because I really wanted something a little bit more engaging than the Cumulus stockinette in the round and my 3x1 rib sock, which is half ribbing, half stockinette. And this is good for that. This is a decent summer fiber, and because it's an 18 stitch gauge, I mean, that's so big, especially for a fingering weight garment. So I'm hoping that means this will happen pretty quickly, and I can feel some sense of accomplishment, because now that I'm knitting so much more slowly and only returned to knitting recently, I feel a little bit like all my projects are just a smidge stale, because I've been thinking about them for like months, because they've been on the needles for months, but I haven't done anything because I haven't been knitting. So yeah, this is a lot of fun. As soon as I finish my cumulus tee, this is going to get a lot more of attention, and I'll talk about hopeful oh, you want to see my swatch? It's not a good one, but I'll show you anyway. This also really softened up. Not that this is scratchy, but it does feel like wool, and even in this kind of warm room, I wouldn't be wanting to wear this. However, this is very soft. So, very exciting stuff, at least for me. And my last WIP, active WIP I should say, one thing at a time. My last WIP is also a new cast on since the last podcast episode, again, and I think I cast this on maybe the day of filming, and it's just a DK weight sock in some Rose Hill yarn I got at Knit City Montreal, and I think this is a leftover from one of their club colors, so I don't know if it's still available, but this is the Laid Edges sock, which is just, a fun DK weight sock with some light cables down the side. I think I'm about ready to do the heel, but I haven't worked on this in many weeks. And I like the cable, I like the repeat, it's very easy to memorize, and I really like the effect in the variegated yarn. Normally, I don't think I would cast on a cabled project in a variegated yarn. Actually, I don't know if that's true. I just haven't done that yet, but I really like this. And I did a contrast cast on, which is one of my favorite things to do for socks. And I think it'll be nice. Sometimes the proportions of the DK weight sock kind of throw me because I feel like I should knit it for a lot longer before I start the heel, but this is 5 inches, so it's about time for me. But that'll be a good either house sock or boot sock. It has nylon. It is a superwash. Yeah, it is a superwash merino nylon blend. Here's the specs. Here's the little logo. And yeah, this is Aspen Fur. It's just really pretty. And I really like seeing how this works up. I think this will be another good, quick, satisfying project to clear once I'm done my cumulus tee, so that I can have some fresh late summer cast-ons before I can start dreaming, while I start dreaming of autumnal knits. But it's very important to me that I get my hand health in order before the fall, because not being able to knit in the summer, that's okay. Not being able to knit in the winter would ruin my life. That's hyperbole, but I think you understand. So here's what it looks like caked up, and here's the contrast. It's this really beautiful, I guess, bronze. I like it. So those are my 4 active WIPs. My poor, beleaguered, woebegone neglected acorn sock. I look at this every day. It sits on my desk. I pet it and I think, wow, this is going to be so nice in the fall when I finally get to finish it. But this pin tuck detail and the upcoming techniques that I need for the next part of the sock to finish it, I know will be pretty hard on my hands, so this is a little bit lower priority, which is a shame, but I really, really, really want to have these done for fall. I feel like these are a great fall-winter sock. I want my little acorn socks when there are acorns on the ground. And that's pretty much it. I have not done any cross-stitch. I have not done any macrame. I have started sewing, actually. I spent almost 2 weeks in Toronto earlier, and that's when it really hit me that I really should not be knitting. My mother is a sewing machine. I've spent most of those 2 weeks trying to learn how to sew. I'm really bad at it, which is kind of liberating. It's really, not that I feel any pressure with my knitting. I also don't know if I'm good at knitting. I'm obsessive and really enjoy it. But it was really, really nice to be like, oh my goodness, I made such a silly mistake and look at my silly backwards shorts. Or, oh my goodness, I set these straps of this tote bag wrong. Silly girl, you know how to use a tote bag. How did you do this wrong? I really enjoyed that. There were many moments of frustration where I had to take a walk or take a break. And again, I'm not good at it. And I have 2 works in progress and 1 dress before I had to come back here where I do not have a sewing machine. But I think I will probably save sewing stuff for maybe a separate video because I don't know how much overlap there is in interest between knitting and sewing, and I feel like I want to keep maybe these to mostly knitting focused, but I think it might be funny to have, or fun, and also a little funny, to have for posterity a video where I sit down and talk about my beginner sewing projects and all the things that went wrong. So I'm thinking about maybe buying a secondhand sewing machine from either the Ottawa Sewing Machine Hospital or someone on Facebook Marketplace or something, but it's not an immediate priority for me. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. And I'll maybe have a video about the many mistakes I've made as a beginner sewer or sewist later. I do have another knitting library book that I checked out, again, before, which is a book I've actually read before. It's Knitting Without Tears by Elizabeth Zimmerman, and I first read the part before she starts talking about techniques, when it's almost more like knitting theory and history. I read this book when I first picked up knitting because people talked about it online so much, and people seem to have such nice things to say about Elizabeth Zimmerman. I would like to echo those sentiments. And I also just found Knitting Without Tears to be a really approachable title as someone who back in the day had attempted to learn how to knit a bunch of times and been too frustrated to continue because I made so many mistakes. And then the fact that chapter 1 is called The Opinionated Knitter, speaking my language. The first line of this book is, most people have an obsession. Mine is knitting. Oh, Elizabeth, how I would soon find out that's me too. But the reason why I checked it out again is because she has a bunch of, she has many, many books. Why am I explaining to you guys who Elizabeth Zimmerman is? You guys know. I checked this book out in particular because I have a small sweaters quantity of a fingering weight yarn that I got at Knit City that I would like to make a plain raglan sweater with. However, I have not been able to find a pattern that I really like. For that, I think the best contender is probably the Jessie May Cozy Classic Raglan Light. The thing is I don't have enough yarn for a 28 stitch gauge full-on sweater. I have, I think, just shy of 900 meters, which is good because I only want something with 2 to 4 inches of positive ease. I have a rough silhouette in mind. I have a drop shoulder thrifted sweater that I wear all the time that I really like. I want something similar but a raglan for this. And in this book, Elizabeth gives instructions on how to come up with your own different types of sweaters and math and what you need to be careful of, and basically how to draft some of your own really basic sweaters, like a raglan. So I am going to, at some point, read that chapter and take notes and maybe do the math that I would need to knit a gauge swatch with that particular yarn so I have all that information ready for when I want to. And I think I will reread the beginning when she just kind of, I don't know, talks about knitting. I like how she writes about it. So yeah, I have looked up on Ravelry some of the sweaters that people have made with her raglan instructions. The necklines look a little big to me. I'm wondering if that's something that's easy to fix. It's typically easy to fix while following a pattern, but I think it might be tricky when I do my own math. And is it going to storm again? No, it's just windy. So we'll see. But Knitting Without Tears, if you're a beginner knitter, or you're not, this is a good book. And I think it's useful to remember that there are people out there who've made it really easy for us to maybe try and dip our toes into drafting things for ourselves. And I really appreciate her legacy and the gifts she has given us all in the knitting community. So that is my library book of the podcast. And I do have a couple acquisitions this time, all of which were bought months ago. So this I got at Knitomatic and then promptly forgot about. This is self-striping sock yarn. It's from Play It Life Fiber Arts. It's the base Jest. Oh, it's a club colorway. And it's 100 grams, 400 yards, 80/20. The colorway is only happy when it rains. So Knitomatic has a donation bin where I think every so often offcuts or unselected yarns from their yarn swaps go in the bin. They're usually then between like $10 and $25 depending on what yarn it is. And then you can buy it, and then the money from the proceeds of that goes towards a local family shelter. So this was a self-striping yarn for $17. I had my eye on it for months and months, and it kept being there anytime I'd pop into Knitomatic for macrame cord, tapestry needles, what have you. And then finally my second last visit, I thought, you know what, that's coming home with me. So $17 from my Knitomatic gift card from my mother. Thanks again, Mom. And I'm hoping soon this will be a very beautiful pair of self-striping socks. Because come on, look at that. I don't know much about Play It Life Fiber Arts. The last yarn I got from that Knitomatic donation bin was from a no longer active Montreal dyer. I haven't looked into Play It Life Long on Colors, but I feel like I hope they are. That'd be nice. Because this is really cool. I really like that the stripes are variegated. Sorry, there's variegated and tonal stripes. I think that is quite genius and shows clear care and prowess when it comes to dyeing. I'm impressed. I'm excited to see how this knits up. And I hope that this person is still active because I'm interested in trying more of their stuff. And I know $17 is a bit much for secondhand yarn, but it's a donation. And also, it's really freaking cool. Okay, my last yarn acquisitions, I have 2 sock sets. Look at me trying to hide things from you to preserve the surprise. I have 2 sock sets. So my last Knit and Chat, I went on and on about how much I coveted Big Little Yarn Co.'s yarn. Melanie of Big Little Yarn Co. is a dyer and YouTuber who lives in Hyogo, Japan. Her eye for color, her aesthetic, her vibe appeals to me greatly. However, she lives in Japan, which is across the world from Canada, and it's already a pain to ship things to Canada. And for a long time, especially when COVID shutdowns were, and supply chain access, and everyone was relying on ordering goods, so that it meant that postal services were rather burdened. Japan stopped shipping to Canada. And Melanie's yarn was unavailable. It's also just very expensive. Not her yarn, not more than anyone else's. It's just shipping to Canada and the conversion. So I went on and on and on about how she was doing a one-day pre-order for her Ghibli yarn collection. And in the past, she had done, like 2 years prior, she had done a bunch of sock club sets. My words, they're not so good today, but I hope you're following along. There was a pre-order. I wanted to order yarn in the pre-order. I had no good reason to order yarn in the pre-order. I talked about this. I really thought that by talking about it, I could get it out of my system and be so good and pious and not buy the yarn. And anyway, I got 2 sock sets in the pre-order. And I only a little bit forgot about them. I wish I could be one of those people who buys things and then forgets about them, but no, I'm there. I'm not like emailing the person waiting, but I did check her email every so often to see how, dyeing is coming along and at one point I got a shipping notification. I was like, yes. Anyway, this is the Howl's Moving Castle sock set. This is Merry-Go-Round Life, which is the name of the songs that Joe Hiyashi, the composer, did for one of the scenes. And then this is Howl's Coat, which is a really beautiful jewel fiery red. And this is just so speckled and so colorful. It's like a very beautiful riot of color, and it is very evocative of the scene of the movie that she used as her inspiration. And Howl's Moving Castle is probably my all-time favorite movie. It's very much my comfort movie. I'm not a movie person, I'm more of a TV person, but I've loved Howl's Moving Castle since I was a kid, and I've also loved the book. I actually have it. Here's a later edition of the book, Howl's Moving Castle, which is a very different story and has a very different tone than the movie, but I love them both. And this is actually the book I took with me to the hospital when they diagnosed me with cancer 3 years ago. And so, again, a lot of comfort is associated with this. And so it's a great thing that I really liked this because I was probably going to get the Howl's Moving Castle colorway and set regardless, simply because of the hold it has on me emotionally and the positive associations I have with Howl's Moving Castle, the book and the movie. Some surefire ways to make me feel a little bit more settled when I'm feeling unsettled. The other one I got, which I think is just my simple favorite pure colorway wise, is the Spirited Away set. And this is the Empty Restaurant, which I think is just so gorgeous. And if I was a richer woman, I would have gotten a sweater's quantity of this. And then also Reiki. Reiki? It's the Japanese word for spirit or ghost. I'm probably mispronouncing it. I'm very sorry. And so, simply beautiful. Simply, simply beautiful. So, yeah, I ordered these, and the way I justified it to myself was the yarn for this, the money to buy this came out of the money I had been saving for Knit City Montreal, and I think that that's fair and reasonable. Except for the fact that I can't knit very much, and my net negative 2,023 grams of yarn in 2023 goal has gone completely out the window. I'm a happy camper. I am pretty sure I know what socks I want to make with this. I do not know what I will make with this. I don't think I want to do necessarily just a plain sock with a heel flap and gusset, contrast heel toe cuff with this, because I feel like this really delicate lavendery pinky color might pick up dirt, so it might not be the best for a heel and a toe, but I might do that anyway because I really want these colors to shine. Or I might do some really basic abstract color work, like maybe I'll look through my current pattern stash. I did when this first arrived. I looked through my 52 weeks of socks, which you guys are sitting on, and my Trimming Colorwork socks, but none of them feel exactly perfect for this, so we'll see, but I love them. And these might jump the queue in terms of cast-ons. I also love the movie Spirited Away. It's a very good movie. It's very interesting, but yeah. So that is my knitting podcast. How long have I been talking? Wow, this is a short one for me. It's going to be record-breakingly short, maybe. But I feel like the longer it goes, the rustier I get. I wanted to film. I wanted to catch up with you guys. I wanted to give you maybe a bit of an explanation. I guess this does leave some room, some time for life updates. I have functionally finished my master's degree, barring disaster, unless there's something that goes majorly wrong with my mini thesis. I am also finishing up a part-time contract at my office, and there's news on the job front for me. We have a new roommate. One of my friends from my undergrad has just finished law school and moved back to Ottawa, where her family is from, and she's moved in with me and my roommate Sarah. So that's been an adjustment, but a really nice and exciting one. And so Ottawa has this music festival that happens every year called Blues Fest. It's not blues music, despite, I think it probably was at the beginning, but I went for 3 days. I got a 3-day pass. It runs, I think, for 9 days. There's a break in the middle. It's like an evenings and weekends thing. And I didn't go last year for many reasons. And I did go this year, and I had a lot of fun. I saw Mumford & Sons. I saw Charlotte Cartin. I saw Fletcher. I saw Pitbull and Ludacris, which was a really fun day. Some of my friends came up from Montreal. And my whole house, they stayed at my house. And my whole household and my friends went. I've been to the beach. And it's just been a time of a lot of change and transition, but good change, I think. I've been happy. Despite all my griping about my hands, I have been happy. Ever since finishing school, I feel light as a bird. I no longer feel like I have 15 million competing priorities and not enough time. The weather has been distressing, but it is what it is, and I've been reading a lot, and the upside to my wonky hand is reconnecting with a lot of other hobbies that I have. I have such a one-track personality when it comes to interests. I have such a difficult time balancing them. I'm not good at reading for an hour and playing video games for an hour and then knitting for an hour. I have to do one thing all the time for weeks, and for a long time that's been knitting, but I've read a bunch of good books. I have more good books waiting, just slightly off screen, and hopefully a couple fun trips planned, and hopefully recording more often. Hopefully I can find a good pace for knitting that works for me and my hands, and we'll be in touch. So I guess I want to know, for my hand, I've been sleeping with a brace. I have been exercising and doing a ton of stretches and exercises to kind of strengthen this whole part of my arms. And I have been taking supplements that might help, that are overall like really low risk. They're just, a lot of them were things I already took but have laxed this summer. I have been making sure to keep my hands in as neutral a position as possible. I got an ergonomic keyboard and mouse to plug in at work so that I'm not causing issues there, because I feel like that's probably the largest part of this. And I'm happy to see that things have improved. So hopefully I can manage this. Hopefully I'll go see somebody soon, and maybe a PT, and have maybe some more specialized exercises or certainty over what's going on. But I'm not particularly concerned, and I would say overall life with me has been good. I hope it has been good for you and your loved ones as well. I'm going to stop recording before I melt, and hopefully we'll talk again soon. Okay,